Hello everyone, and welcome to Off the Cuff, where the headlines come to life. And we are in the studio with Clarity Newhouse. Now, Clarity owns Sunny Media, which is a marketing and public relations firm. And no, we're not going to talk to her about that today. What we're going to talk to her about is the fact that Clarity is a stock car race driver. And I think that is way too cool. Clarity, welcome to Off the Cuff.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well,
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I'm just excited. Look at you. You're in your outfit, your race car driver outfit, and this is something that you just started back in 2015.
It is. You're right.
It's
been fast.
It has been. I think my first question for you is, what made you want to be a race car driver? I mean, you're a professional woman with your own business, entrepreneur, successful, and then you said, I'm going to be a race car driver. What happened and how did it happen?
Absolutely, and my husband's still recovering from that surprise.
I can imagine.
I've always been a NASCAR fan. I love racing, all kinds of racing, and about 2 years ago I had the opportunity to drive in a Rusty Wallace racing experience out at Michigan International Speedway, where you can ride in a NASCAR and then you can drive yourself, and I discovered it was something that I had a talent for and something that I loved. And
so that was just something
the beginning.
You went to as a spectator. And
yeah, a friend of mine knew that I was a race car fanatic, and he sent me a little Groupon thing and said, you know, you can go drive a race car at Michigan International Speedway. And so I took him up on it, and I went out and rode with one of the professional drivers, and then they turn you loose and you can go drive yourself. It's super fun. They do it all the time out at Michigan International Speedway. And so it was that Rusty Wallace racing experience that got me excited about the fact that, hey, you know, maybe a woman almost 40 could actually do this. So I went home that night and posted on Facebook, aspiring race car driver seeks race sponsoring car. And at that point I was totally kidding, because it really never occurred to me that I could do this.
I was just going to ask you, if posting it on Facebook, was that just a post, a cute post that you thought was just?
Absolutely.
And then what happened after that? I mean, that's history. So that Facebook posting was really the start of something phenomenal for you.
It was really the beginning of something wonderful. One of my clients, Varsity Ford, saw that post and he said, hey, you know, there's a race car driver who works in our body shop, and Matt introduced myself and Steve, and Steve just looked at me, I'm completely serious, and said, so I hear you want to be a race car driver. And at that moment I realized that yes, absolutely, and it's that level of respect and interest that Steve showed, and a willingness to invite me to join his team and race with him last year, which we did all season at Flat Rock Speedway, that gave me the opportunity to do something I didn't believe I could do, and it was really wonderful.
So when Steve met with you, what was your idea of what this meeting was going to be? I mean, was it something that you went into it very seriously? Was it something that you thought, well, let me just find out what's going on? And his reception of you was very positive, obviously. But what was going through your mind? I mean, you have a family. Do you have any kids?
I don't have any kids.
Okay.
I've been a science nerd and a race car lover my whole life. But I think even when we feel as women that maybe we that we can't do something, and maybe even we're trying not to subscribe to certain stereotypes. I mean, I'm a business owner. I've done a lot of things that are not traditional, and yet I still had this kind of perception that women don't do that. Even though I love Danica Patrick, you know, there's been many women over the years who have been fabulous race car drivers.
Absolutely.
But it's just not kind of, you know, the dominant perception yet, and I love that that's changing. And it was a wake-up call for me to step outside of the stereotype that I had about myself.
Absolutely.
And Steve helped me do that, so that was really neat. And the next thing I learned is that it's a lot harder than it looks.
Absolutely. I mean, that I have a huge appreciation for. But before we get into the logistics, you went home and you said to your husband, Dana, I want to be a race car driver. What happened after
honey,
that?
Guess what happened today? I'm so fortunate that my husband is absolutely encouraging and supportive, and that makes such a difference. The people that we have in our lives and the way that they're willing to encourage us and be open-minded, and so that's one of the things that this whole experience has reminded me of.
So he's been very supportive.
Yes, we have to support other people too in their dreams. So I'm trying to pay it forward on that as well.
Absolutely. Well, in paying it forward, you actually created Race Car Mobile Science Lab, and that is to help kids get
excited about science,
out of the stereotypes, and get excited about science. Tell us what that's about and why you created that, and how is the participation, and what have you seen since you've created it, and when did you create it?
So
was this last year?
That was something I started right at the beginning of the race season, and as you noted, this was definitely something completely new and different for me to get involved in racing, and I really felt like I didn't know yet whether I was actually going to be any good at this, how far it was going to go, and I thought, what could I do to have, this huge effort that I'm about to make mean something? So regardless of whether I'm going to be successful as a race car driver, at least I can use this opportunity to show kids that you can be and do anything you want to be. Absolutely. And the science opportunities that are available for young people now are just tremendous. Sure. And I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And especially I think for young girls, they do opt out of the sciences at a very young age. And I'd like to help make a difference in encouraging them to get excited about science and open their eyes to what they can do.
So do you have kids come to your races, or what is the makeup of the Mobile Science Lab?
Yeah, so what we've actually been doing is bringing our race cars, starting with mine, actually into the schools. So for a lot
go to them.
We're actually bringing the race cars to them, which is so cool, because for a lot of the students that we interact with, they've never had an experience like that. In some of the schools that we have been to, they almost never have anyone, who they perceive as a celebrity to come in, and they get very excited about that. And they do see somebody in a non-traditional role doing something they don't expect, when I can talk to them about the motor and tell them, all the work we do on the car, and they can touch it hands-on and learn about aerodynamics and see how that works and talk about Newton's laws and all of these things that they hear about in textbooks. And now they can see it in another application in real life. So I've gone around to many different schools, primarily in the Metro Detroit area, and now we're looking at expanding beyond that as well.
That is so exciting. I think that's so wonderful for kids, like you said. I mean, just the concept of seeing someone in a very non-traditional role really encourages them to say, hey, I can do whatever I put my mind to. So that's definitely inspirational for any child to see. But what I want to know is, when you got into the car for the very first time, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, okay, I can do this? Were you thinking, what the heck was I thinking? Or is it something that just fit like a glove?
It was very exciting to be able to get into the car for the first time, and absolutely the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. I absolutely had that what did I do moment, and I think it was right when I was going onto the track for the very first time. And I've loved every minute of it, and I think the main thing that I've enjoyed is the challenge of pushing myself far outside of my comfort level, far beyond what I thought I was capable of. And just because you like to drive doesn't mean you can drive a race car. And so I've been humbled along the way. I've also had successes that have been really exciting, and it's been a great learning experience. So I feel like in addition to teaching kids, I've learned a lot myself throughout this experience.
What was the biggest challenge for you in getting your mindset and physically trying to get the equipment that you needed, the beautiful outfits? The outfits are the greatest part. You look great in that. But what was your biggest challenge in wrapping your mind around the concept of being a race car driver and the logistics of getting your car, and you have to have a crew too. So how did you go about doing all that stuff? I mean, it's really a challenge to think about, having a career and then to just saying, okay, I'm going to be, and that's what happened with you. I mean, it wasn't a process. It was, I'm going to be a race car driver, and went right into it. So what was your challenges?
I think the main initial challenge that surprised me was all of the things that have to be kind of conquered before you're actually on the track, just from, like you said, an equipment standpoint. So before I could focus on going fast on the racetrack, I literally had to learn how to buckle my seatbelt. So everything was new. There was a day when I drove around Metro Detroit on a work day wearing my helmet in my Mustang the whole day, just to get used to wearing a helmet, because it's such a foreign experience. And so for Steve and his father Steve and Tom and all the wonderful crew people who worked with me, they were very supportive. But I think it's kind of hard even for them to wrap their head around the fact that I'm learning everything, not just the proper arc and the proper line around the racetrack, but when I was getting in the car, learning how to start it, learning how to get buckled in, learning how the net comes up and down, learning how to get out in an emergency. All of those things occupy a lot of your mind. And then you get to the track and it's like, oh, and now I'm supposed to drive fast.
I'm supposed to drive fast. Every little girl and little boy's dream to be able to do that.
So that was great and challenging. And the first year I had a lot of help from the crew and the team members that were here locally working on our crew. And this year I actually changed to drive a different race car. And it's been a very different experience this year, because last year I feel like I was focused very much on learning how to race. And this year I've been working very much on maintaining and repairing and working in the garage on my own car.
So you're under
I've literally been under the hood, under the car. We had motor trouble with our vehicle, and so we actually took the motor in and out a couple of times. So, hooking up the exhaust and, disconnecting and reconnecting the headers and, the starter and all of these things that I've had an opportunity to work on hands-on now that I didn't have last year, has been kind of lemonade made out of the lemons of technical difficulties.
So you're actually under the hood fixing the car and learning all the parts and what happens. And I mean, I've had to do that a few times, just the oil thing, and I play with a few things, and somehow the car ends up starting. But that is an entire career within itself. So you're learning that as you go. But do you actually have a crew? I mean, on TV you see the NASCAR drivers, and they stop and then they all run through and they fix the tires and make sure everything is going well.
I have a wonderful crew, and it absolutely would be impossible to do it without them. Tom Cronowitz is my crew chief, and he's worked on and taken care of that car and taught me a lot of what I've learned this year. So that's been great. And he races as well in a late model, and we had an experience last weekend where the starter on his car went out, and so we needed to borrow the starter from my car, and so I jumped in the car, drove back to the garage, got underneath my car, unbolted my starter, grabbed it, brought it back to him so he could use it at the track. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even known what a starter looked like, where it was on the car, or certainly not how to actually, remove and install it myself. So I get just as much fun out of the learning experiences that I've been having as I do out of the time on the track.
Oh, that absolutely. You also need sponsors when you're driving the car and racing. So where are you going for your sponsors? And as a woman, I mean, it's a different experience. I mean, are they receptive in sponsoring you? And who do you actually approach?
Sponsors are so important to this sport, and we've been extremely lucky. The focus that we have on education has been a wonderful way that we became connected with Rainbow Child Care Center. And Rainbow Child Care Center has centers all over the U.S., and they're very focused on early childhood education. So their sponsorship of our race team has been fantastic, because with the ability to get kids excited about science at a very early age, that's really been fun. So we're very grateful for their support and excited about the way that they focus on early childhood education and helping create a foundation for success. So that's been wonderful. We originally were able to start the Race Car Mobile Science Lab thanks to support from Quick Lane at Blackwell Ford, and that was really exciting because they cared about what we were doing and were able to help us get started. Rusty Wallace Racing Experience has been a great supporter. That's been wonderful. JD Racing Indoor indoor karting in Novi, has been a supporter since the very beginning, so we appreciate that. And Summit Academy, that's right in the Flat Rock area, they've been involved, and Paul's Automotive Service. So we're just very, very grateful to the support. And even with that, it's still not enough to cover the cost of racing, because it's a very expensive sport, and your ability to be competitive is to a large degree affected by the amount of resources that you have access to. So we're still seeking sponsors from anybody who wants to get involved in a race team that's making a difference for kids, and also really trying to do something on the track as well.
What is your long-term goal? I mean, is it NASCAR? Is it to get to that point? What are your thoughts, and how do you feel about your abilities to be able to get to that part in terms of being competitive in that arena?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, my long-term goal is to be able to help my sponsors be able to have a great experience through the exposure that they get from racing, and to be able to help kids be inspired to do whatever they want to do and what they can believe in themselves being capable of. So those are the two things that I care about from a goal standpoint. Personally, the personal growth and the enjoyment that I have of being able to be in the sport has been fantastic. So those are the things that I'm really focused on. And personally, I'm such a competitive person that, of course, every time I get on the track, I want to win. I want to be the best driver that I can be. And last year, I did the full season at Flat Rock Speedway. I came in 14th out of about 42 racers who competed at the track. Yeah, and that was the first, experience I had. I believe I was the only person who had literally never been in a race of any kind prior to that. Most people don't just jump in an outlaw late model car for
So
the first
14
time.
out of 25?
Out of 42.
Oh,
I think,
out of 42. That's an excellent record
so
for the first time racing.
It was a good experience, and so I'm trying to build on that and improve my racing and of course be competitive. The extent to which I do that, I think, will depend on the extent to which we can provide a marketing product that companies want to support, because I personally don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to take the racing any farther than I have. But with the support of sponsors, who knows what we could do with it.
So NASCAR is in the picture.
I don't foresee any scenario in which that would ever happen. I mean, the millions and millions of dollars that are required to do that. But again, why say no, right? I didn't believe I could get this far. So
I
think if I've learned anything from this experience, it's that anything can happen. So.
Sure. 2 weeks prior to you racing, did you think you were going to be racing? Into the meeting mode of saying I'm going to be a race car driver 2 weeks prior. Was that even on your radar?
Well, 2 weeks prior. So in order to actually be at the race, it was 6 to 9 months of preparation.
No, I mean 2 weeks prior to you sending that email out.
Oh, you are completely correct. No, I would not have even dreamed. And I think that's the
exciting part about it.
It is exciting, and it's so
Just
important.
to follow your dream.
To follow your dreams and to believe that things are possible, and that's why I'm trying to do that for kids. And so I actually have to remind myself, anything is possible.
And what a beautiful message. As a woman, what is the reaction of other women when you talk to them and say, "I'm a race car driver"? What is the impression, or what is the communication that you have with them?
It's been wonderful. It really has been wonderful. And I think going into the season at Flat Rock Speedway, that brings up a really important point too, which is that I think there was a perception or an idea, maybe even among myself, certainly other people that I talked to, that, as the only woman in that division, that, I might be going into, an environment that would be, would push back against me or something like that. And it's completely the opposite. So I think that there's an opportunity for more women in racing, but there's also an opportunity to change the perception about how welcoming racing is to women. Because Flat Rock Speedway, which is run by ARCA, has been a fabulous place to be, a fabulous place to race. They've welcomed me from the very beginning. The other racers who we're competing against have helped me, have encouraged me, have taught me. And I think that there's not enough awareness of what a great and welcoming community that is. And Flat Rock Speedway is owned by ARCA, as well as Toledo Speedway, and I haven't had a chance to race at Toledo yet, but I'm looking forward to that. And I've been having opportunities to race at tracks all around Michigan, and everywhere I've gone, I have found that the local racing community is extremely welcoming and supportive of women and anyone who wants to get involved in this really, really fun sport.
Well, what would be the advice from you to anyone who would want to be involved in the race car industry, as well as possibly wanting to drive a race car, and what would be the initial investment? I mean, what are they looking at in terms of enthusiasm, in terms of wanting to succeed in this area, and in terms of financial investment?
I think the first thing that I would recommend is that they look up their local racetracks, because there's not even enough awareness of how many tracks there are. We have lots of tracks all across Michigan. I've had the pleasure of racing all the way from Flat Rock over to the other side of the state where they have Berlin Raceway, which is by Grand Rapids. So, go out to your local track and make friends and get to know the drivers there, because those are where a lot of the people who do grow into NASCAR and other areas of racing get started. That's really important. And then I think it's impossible to underestimate the importance of connecting with organizations that are interested in promoting their products and services to the local community, because short track racing is just a great way to be involved in the community, to make a difference. And where else can you actually have such an up-close experience with the race cars? It's just a great thing to do, and racers and aspiring racers do need to understand that racing is a business too. We can't just go out for fun and spend tens of thousands of dollars without being able to recoup that for the sponsor. And it's no different in football or baseball or any other sport. In order for these to happen, they have to make business sense for the people who are investing in them.
So what would be the initial investment for an individual driver that wants to get into that kind of thing? Or is it mostly just the sponsors that come on board? Or is it an initial investment from you per se? I mean, did you have to, sort of put your money, behind your dream?
Yeah, I shudder to think. But the car is the most,
right. And now you bought the car from Steve,
yes.
Right?
Now there are cars, for example, this year, for the first time, I have two different cars that I'm driving. So I'm driving a late model car that tours around Michigan. I do own both of them. Okay. And the late model car was a much greater investment. That's a car that has a Ford template body. It has very rigorous rules attached to it. It's completely in line with all of the rules and guidelines of CRA, the Champion Racing Association, which hosts the JEGS All-Stars Tour that I've been participating in. So that's a very specialized and regulated, racing division. On the other side, I own a street stock race car. That's a car. There are race cars available that you could purchase right now at Flat Rock Speedway from local racers for less than $10,000. At Flat Rock, that street stock division is, I believe, the most competitive in the state. They have many cars that turn out, sometimes a field as great as 30 cars. And that's a really cool place to get started.
Really quick, we only got a couple minutes,
Yes.
But how dangerous is this?
One of the great things about this sport is that over the years it has become much safer. The safety equipment has advanced. There was a time when it was very, very dangerous, and these days it's much less so. Obviously, it is very important to properly utilize all of the safety equipment.
Seatbelt on, right?
Yes, seat belts. There are many seat belts, plus the helmet, plus the Hans device, which is the piece that holds your head in place so that your neck is protected. Those are some of the things that have been incorporated into the sport over the years that do make a big difference.
And you've been safe these last couple of years.
Yes, I've been very safe, so that's been great. Despite the fact that my car has been caught up in numerous wrecks, we do find ourselves causing lots of damage to the vehicles and usually not much damage to the people, so it's wonderful.
That's a good thing to hear. That's a good thing. Good thing to hear. I'm getting going-tied just listening to all this
well, I hope you come
stuff.
out. It's really great.
I would love to. I would really, really love to. You're going to be Saturday, August 13th, Auto City, the 20th, Berlin Race Way, the 27th, Flat Rock, the 6th in Flat Rock as well, right?
Yes.
And September 10th in Owasso Speedway, Michigan. You are just such an inspiration, and we're gonna get you a shirt that says "Follow your dreams." I did. Everything's possible. Thank you so much, Clarity. It was
such a pleasure.
I
really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you all. Remember, follow your dreams. Nothing is impossible. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.